First of all, a very big thank you for inviting me to speak today. Delighted to be here to speak to you. My name's Alex Whittles. All of my contact details are up on the slides. If you have any questions about anything we covered today or anything else data, machine learning related, please do feel free to get in touch. A bit about me before we start. I'm a Microsoft partner. I run Purple Frog, which is a data analytics consultancy based in Telford. Customers ranging from NASA, US Treasury to Barclays Capital to small companies that you would never have heard of. Data is for everybody, every business of every size. I also run Europe's largest data analytics conference, SQL Bits, which is happening next month in London, 2,500 people. If you want to know more about data analytics, machine learning, that's a good conference to go to. When I'm not doing that, I'm also a qualified pilot, so you'll find me at 5,000 feet up there somewhere, irritating you on a Sunday morning with loads of noise. I apologise for that. Right, so what are we talking about? Machine learning. What is it? What does it look like? Where's it come from and where's it going? As we all know, machine learning is an evil plot to enslave us under our evil robot master overlords. We are all doomed, or are we? In reality, it's not quite that pessimistic yet. Maybe it'll get there eventually, maybe it won't, we don't know. In our world, data is a little bit more mundane. It's day-to-day business information we care about. You will have experienced it on a daily basis, shopping on Amazon. Customers who bought this also bought that. Take Amazon as an example. $136 billion of sales. They've got over 2 billion products. If they had a team of people to work through those 2 billion products and work out what's associated with what, it's impossible. It's an impossible task. There's too much data there. So you need to do it programmatically. You need to look at all those historical sales and try and build patterns between which products tend to be bought together. Not just that, but also apply lots of other demographic information. When you go on Amazon, they don't just look at what you're buying. They look at your demographic, the kind of person you are, what you bought before, and find other people that have a similar profile and look at what else they're buying and use that for recommendations. They are very, very complex recommendations engines. These things can take hours, days, or even weeks to build these machine learning models that allow this kind of prediction. But they're incredibly quick to run. When you go on Amazon and choose a product, you get instant recommendations. And that's a critical part of machine learning. It takes a long time to train and build, but very quick to use and consume in the real world. Other areas you may have experienced machine learning, things like credit scoring, when you apply for a loan or a credit card. Gone are the days where you know your bank manager, they knew your parents. You walk in there and they've known you since you were born, they can assess your credit risk. That doesn't happen anymore. You put your details into a form online, press a button, computer says yes, computer says no. How do they do that? Well, that's by looking at the information you put in, by looking at your demographics, your information, the details about you, who you are, where you live, what kind of house you live in, what kind of job you've got. Apply that to historical information about previous loans that have defaulted, and use that historical information to build a prediction model of how likely you are to default on that loan or credit card. And that's why when you ask them why you've been declined for a loan, they normally can't tell you, because they don't know. It's computer ML algorithm that's told them yes or no, or applied the risk, rather than a human making that decision. Customer segmentation is an interesting one that applies to virtually every business. Let's say you're a holiday company, and you've got a special promotion deal on a 2-week all-inclusive luxury romantic holiday for 2 in the Maldives. You've got a list of 100,000 people that you can send a marketing flyer to. That's going to cost you a reasonable amount of money to send that campaign out. So why can't we look at historical sales of holidays? Look at the kind of demographic profile of the kind of people that have previously bought that holiday and try and build a prediction on who's most likely to respond favourably to that marketing. Now we know just through looking at this, at that scenario, it's not going to be single parents, it's not going to be students, it's not going to be young single professionals. It's going to be older professionals, newly retired, kids have left home, live in a 4-bedroom plus house. We can pick a few demographics that we can think as humans make sense. An ML algorithm can look at hundreds or thousands of data points and build up a far more complex picture of this prediction model to help you try and understand who's most likely to buy a product, which customers are going to leave you, things like that based on their history. Doing a project like that, you can, instead of sending 100,000 mail shots out, you can send 10,000. Cut your marketing costs down by 90%. They can often pay for themselves in a single marketing campaign. If we look at the post office, when you send a letter, you put the postcode on. And that's what's used as the primary routing method for letters. The post office doesn't have enough people to sit there and take every letter in turn and say, okay, well that's SY3, that goes in that bucket, that's TF1, that goes in that bucket. It's all ML. They essentially, simplification of it all, take a photograph or a scan of the address. The first algorithm works out which is the most likely line to be the postcode. Only the last, but that may be England, so it may not be. Once it's identified that, another algorithm splits up that into different characters, and then an image recognition algorithm says what's the most likely letter for that particular character. Now, some things like T are going to be pretty straightforward. Some things like I, L, or 1 are very ambiguous. So machine learning is never about this is a guaranteed answer. It's about what is the most likely. It's a prediction of likelihood of event. So that I, L, or 1, it may come out and say, I think it's 60% likely to be an L, 40% likely to be a 1. Okay, well let's look at all of those letters in production. Is that a valid postcode? If it's not, okay, let's choose next most likely and use that. These things run millions and millions of letters every minute. They're very, very fast to run, and it's automation of mundane manual tasks. Let's step back a little bit in history. Probably the first experience you probably ever had with artificial intelligence was Pac-Man. I presume all of you have played Pac-Man at one point in your life. Now, those ghosts are intelligent beasts. They hunt you down and kill you. Their behaviour is highly complex. But in reality, it boils down to very, very simple rules. Who knows all Pac-Man ghosts have names?
Yes.
Good knowledge. What are the names?
I couldn't tell you what they are, but I didn't know they have names.
Half an answer, but so Blinky, who's the red one. Blinky had a simple rule of heading straight for you. That's it. Pinky, the pink one, aims 4 squares ahead of where you're aiming, where you're going. Inky, the blue one, projects a line from Blinky through to Pac-Man, projects that forward and aims for that point. And then Clyde, the orange one, just chills out at the bottom doing his own thing. Now, they're very, very simple rules. We call this an expert system, the very first iteration of AI, where a programmer sits down and works out what these rules are, and types of programming language, writes an algorithm and says, right, that's it. There's no learning involved, it's human-coded. Expert systems where we're trying to codify what's in a human brain, put it into an automated system. The evolution of that then came to the next level of machine learning, where we don't programmatically write algorithms, we give examples of historical information and data to the algorithm, to the computer, and say, right, this is my history. You just learn from that and figure out the historical input and output. You figure out the correlations and the relationship between the data we're giving you. Let's go back to the holiday sales. You've got these demographics, you know those people have bought holidays, you can then use that to work out historically which people are more likely to buy those holidays. Then you can use that to predict future occurrences. So we're not telling the computer what to do, we're giving it examples and telling it to learn. The critical part of that machine learning side of it is that the output is still relatively straightforward. You can look at the output of these ML algorithms and read them. They can be as simple as if this, then that, if that, then that. If that person's got more than 4 bedrooms in the house and they had an income of 100,000 or more, yes, they're a viable candidate for the holiday. They're simple rules that you can human read. But all the research these days is going to deep learning, neural networks, which is where the real future of AI is going. And I should caveat that these terms, AI, machine learning, and deep learning, if you ask 10 different people to define what they mean, you will get 10 different answers. This is how I like to view the world. Everyone has different perspectives. So don't take that as gospel. This is the way that I like to think about the evolution. Deep learning, what's that all about? It's similar to machine learning. It's an enhancement of machine learning, where we're giving examples of historical events to the system, and it uses it to learn. But instead of building simple mathematical models, it tries to recreate the human brain. Now, the human brain is a very, very complex thing. In the average human brain, there's about 100 billion neurons. These little points there, and that one there. And then connecting all these neurons are synaptic connections. Each neuron has an average 7,000 connections to other neurons. So you can imagine the complexity of how much information is stored in there. The average 3-year-old brain has in the region of 1 quadrillion synaptic connections. That's a lot of complexity to learn. But the human brain is capable of phenomenal things. So how does it work? If we take a dramatic oversimplification, let's say this neuron up here represents a nice bottle of Malbec, and that neuron there represents a smile on my face. Now, I've spent many years training my brain on this. When I started out never having had Malbec before, didn't know if I'd like it or not, but I try it, and I enjoy it. So both of those neurons fire up, and as they fire up, the connection between them becomes stronger. And every time I have another glass of Malbec, that connection gets stronger and stronger. It's so strong now that I can look at the bottle of Malbec, and that neuron fires up. And by definition, that synaptic connection fires up, and this one goes, oh, hello. So I've trained it over time with inputs and outputs, and now I'll give it an input, and it predicts what my output's going to be. Now, in reality, that's going to cover hundreds of thousands or millions of neurons in my brain working through that process, but that's the process of building these connections. And we can build these systems in computer code. We can build these neurons and these connections between them, albeit dramatically more simple than that. I think Bristol University have created one of the more complex neural networks, which represents the brain of an average frog. And that takes weeks and weeks and weeks to train and learn. Now, if you think of the human brain, I'm 43, and I've spent 43 years learning, and I'm still learning now. They take a long time to process and build up. But we can use these to do far more complex machine learning models and predictions than just things like, is a customer going to buy a product, are they going to leave us and churn, etc., or time series prediction models. We can use them with things like image recognition, for doing things like self-driving cars, where we're actually taking complexity that can't just be codified in a series of if statements and case statements. You're looking at an example of a neural network right now, with the subtitles on the bottom of the screen. What's happening there is my voice is being picked up by my computer. It's being sent off in real time up to the Microsoft Azure cloud, transcribed using a neural network voice recognition transcription model, and the text sent back down to my computer. This, to me, is the impact of machine learning in our day-to-day lives. Inclusivity. If you took a phone, downloaded the Microsoft Translate app, and went to this URL, you could choose a language, German. And you could see transcripts of what I'm saying to you in real time in German. Now,
Trump transcripts.
it's not always perfect. Actually, in tests, this is actually more accurate than a human translator that's sitting there beside you typing. Only marginally, but it's learning and it's evolving as you go through. Now, to me, go into a classroom, you have a foreign student there where English is not their first language. Suddenly they can actually read what the teacher's saying. When we have international customers where English is their second or third language. When we have meetings using, if anyone's using Microsoft Teams, have a video call, there's a button on there that says transcribe, and it'll do the same thing. So as people are talking, it just gives you that transcription and translation. Now that means when you're over on holiday in South Korea and end up in a police station or a hospital, you don't have to wait for a translator. This technology starts to bring communication, inclusivity. People are hard of hearing, for example. They can communicate without having to have sign languages and things like that. These things are introducing themselves into our daily lives. The key point of that is that no one's ever said, turn on the machine learning box. It's just turn on subtitles. You shouldn't know that's machine learning. It's becoming democratized to a point where it's taking part in everyday life. With things like image recognition, if you ever, I presume you've all got thousands of photos on your phone. If you go onto your photos, certainly on an iPhone, I think Android do it as well, there's now a search box where you can search your photos for tractor. And it'll show you all the photos of a tractor. How does it do that? Well, as you take the photo, sends it up to the cloud, scans it with image tagging, tagging of concepts or entities that it finds in the image, and tags them. So you can then search by tractor or beach or potato or food, whatever you want to do. Suddenly that then changes, makes life easier for us, where we can actually say, yeah, we've got 10,000 photos on our phone, we can now find things again. It's these small things where machine learning is creeping into our daily lives without us even really knowing about it. Who knows who that chap is?
Bishop.
Bishop, very good. Bishop is the neural network-brained android from Aliens. We're going to build a Bishop live now. So I'm going to show you, this is the Windows installation of Python. Now, if any of you've got kids at school, they're probably learning Python. They're learning how to print hello world, how to add 1 and 1 together to make 2. Most kids don't realise the power of Python as a language. As a data and analytics consultancy, our primary technology that we're recruiting is Python, because it has phenomenal power for data manipulation and for machine learning. At some point as a kid, you probably picked up a stick and tried to balance it on your hand. And what happened? It fell over. So you picked it up again and tried to balance it again, and it fell over again. The more you try it, the more you learn about how to balance that stick. You learn about centre of gravity. We're going to build a similar thing here in Python. This is 180 lines of Python code. I'm not going to go through the code for you, but it's not a big, complex bit of code. And there's a game we can play which is balancing this stick. And as I run it, we're just going to do completely random movements of moving the hand left or right, randomly, and see how long it takes before the stick falls over. As soon as it gets to a certain angle, it'll freeze for a second and restart, and we'll try again. And we're going to see how well it does at a pure random chance. So we can see at the bottom the amount of moves it's making, and we've got 16, 41, 17, 20. The goal is to get to 200 moves and still be vertical, still be upright. So we can see the average mean score was 22 moves before it fell over. Not great. But if we look at these, some of them, purely by random chance, are better than others. 41, 43, 40, other ones are rubbish, like 10. So how about we filter out the bad ones and just keep the good ones, and use the pattern of behaviour as to what happened on those randomly, by chance, good balancing acts, feed those into a neural network model, and see if it can learn what it takes to balance that stick. Nowhere are we telling it how to balance a stick. We're just saying keep trying random examples and learn from what randomly works to try and figure out what works and what doesn't work. So I'm now going to, instead of playing a random game, I'm going to run 5,000 random simulations. I'm going to take the best ones of those to train a model, and I'm going to play the game using that model. So this is now building my model from scratch. It's running those 5,000 games in the background. You can't see it, it'll take too long. And it's now feeding that into our neural network and training it up. Now this is going to take about 10 seconds to run. The bigger the network, the bigger the model, the longer it takes. It can now balance a stick. Now I've not told it how to balance a stick. I've not even told it what the game is. All I've told it is you just keep that thing from falling over as long as you can. And with no actual programming, it can do that. So apply that to your business. If you've got a factory, looking at sensor readings on an IoT device on a production line, what's the temperature? What's the throughput? What's the work rate of it? What's the failure rate? You've got medical information. You've got productivity information in your business, customer behaviour, all of this kind of stuff. You can model very, very complex behaviour and just give it information, and it'll build something in its brain to try and help you predict stuff. You used to have to pay 6-figure salaries to data scientists to do this now. You've now got libraries in Python like TensorFlow that you can just use, and in only 180 lines of code, build something that can take this data and use it. You can also use the same image recognition, so the same neural networks for image recognition. A key milestone, I think it was last year, was a system that can look at scans of tumours to determine whether they are cancerous or not, identify tumours in a body. Now, you've got some very highly paid doctors who are supposed to look at those and identify, but they're very overworked. They're very tired, they may have very, very long shifts, and they will miss things. That's human nature. We have good days and bad days. It's been proven that an image recognition system using similar technology is more accurate at identifying tumours than a well-trained surgeon. Now, the challenge is we don't want to replace the surgeons. We still need the surgeons, but we're supposed to give them more accurate information. We can use these things to say, okay, you've got 50 MRI scans to look through. How about we prioritise them into the most likely ones to have a tumour first, so that you look at the most important ones first, when you're fresh-brained and you're actually on form. When you're more tired towards the end, they're less likely to have a tumour anyway. We're not talking about replacing jobs, although that is a challenge we need to face. But it's about providing better information to the work we do to be able to work more efficiently. If you have got kids and you want to play, point them in the direction of that balancing stick, I would recommend going to YouTube Centre Decks. So, a chap called Harrison Kinsley has got a whole series of vlogs on how to build this stuff, how the Python code works. He gives you the Python code to do exactly this demo and a whole load more. Very, very easy to use and far more engaging for kids to learn programming than just doing simple hello world constructs. So, where does this leave us? We have a few challenges though with the evolution of AI. We can't just blindly start creating prediction models and using them. We have to be aware of the impacts of where these things can go wrong. And there is a challenge of ethics and bias that we have to be very, very aware of. A typical example you'll hear is a self-driving car. Driving down the road and there's a little kid in the road that you're going to hit. The only option is to carry on going or to swerve and then hit an OAP. What should you do? And obviously there's no right answer. There is no good outcome of that. The challenge is more difficult because a survey was done recently asking hundreds of thousands of people all around the world of how they would answer that question. In the West, the answer was pretty much overwhelmingly save the kid. In Japan, it was save the OAP. Their cultural behaviour, beliefs and history are so different to the West that there is a complete difference in expectation of how an entity should behave in a specific environment. As technology companies, we can't just create one solution and apply it to the whole world. We have to be aware of regional differences in expected behaviour. How do we code for that? How do we provide it with examples on how to deal with that situation? It's very, very hard. A more real-world example that you may face is Amazon. Went through a program of using AI models to assess CVs as to who they should interview. So they fed in the history of the CVs they'd received over the years, then those that they'd given jobs to, and those that performed well. Built a prediction model based on a CV of whether they should give that person an interview. What happened? Only men got interviews. Now there's a tendency to think that these systems are computers. They can't have any bias. Well, yeah, but we're training them with history that's come from us, and we are biased. Whether we believe it or not, whether we think it or not, we are all biased. Subconsciously, positively biased, negatively biased, it doesn't matter, we are biased. The American police force, I think in New York, did a similar exercise to try and predict reoffending rates for convicts as they're released from jail, using historical examples of who reoffends and who gets put back in jail again. Guess what? Only ethnic minorities reoffend. Why? Because of bias in the American police force. We have to be very, very careful with the data we're feeding into these systems, because that is going to have an impact on their behaviour and what they do. And if we're not aware of that, we can end up making the situation worse. Because, guess what? It's not my bias, it's the computer. It's not me. I'm innocent. Yeah, but we built the system. We have to be very careful with that. Where do we draw the limits and the lines on what machine learning and AI systems can do? Elon Musk was quoted as saying AI represents an existential threat to human civilization. Stephen Hawking told the BBC the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. These are clever people. We need to listen to them. Now, that's not to say we're going to end up in that situation. It's just a warning flag that we have to be aware of where they could end up if we don't build systems to manage them carefully, and to think about when we're building even the smallest, most simple system in our world, what the implication of that is going to be in our world. There's a good example actually of also getting good data to train our systems. Going back to World War II, the Russians came up with a plan to train dogs to go and lie underneath tanks. What they would do, they would take them out into the field. They would then strap suicide vests to these dogs, point them towards the German tanks, and then the theory was they would go and lie under the tank, and then the vest would go off. Any guesses as to what happened? They trained them with Russian tanks. So the first thing these dogs did, turn around, go back, lie under the Russian tanks, and boom. Now, we have common sense. Most of us have common sense. We can clearly see that's the wrong thing to do. A dog doesn't, and a computer doesn't. That's our data we have to train it with. Another one in World War II. Aeroplanes coming back from Germany were being monitored for where the worst areas on the planes of bullet holes were. And they were using that to work out where extra armament should be put in, extra shielding should be put on these planes to protect against bullet holes. And so the areas with the highest density of bullet holes, they were saying we need to put more armour on those, and we can take armour off the other places. Any holes in that plan?
Well, the ones that were shot down.
Absolutely. They're only looking at the planes that came back. The ones with the really serious bullet holes never came back. They were shot down. And it took a statistician, which is the history of machine learning, to actually point out to them, no, you need to invert that. So be very, very careful of the historical data that you're using to build these systems, because it will take you down a very, very dark path if you don't be very careful about that. Next up, can you spot the difference between these two fine young gentlemen? I'll give you a clue. One of them's fake. One on the left is fake. Who thinks one on the left? Who thinks one on the right?
声音和外形不太与新华社新闻主播。各位观众朋友们，大家好，我是今天刚入职。
Hello everyone, I'm an English artificial intelligence anchor. This is my very first day in Xinhua's agency. My voice and appearance are modeled on Zhang Zhao, a real anchor with Xinhua.
完全不同字，真人主播的我具备了和真人主播一样的呼唤。一些顺利时刻陪伴一些参与。
No overtime payment for 24/7 staff. Doesn't that sound appealing? Let's look at that for a minute. We've got AI systems reading the news. Whatever you give them, they're going to read. Which two countries in the world have created systems like this? China and Russia. AI systems are creating the news. A lot of the sports news articles and financial news articles that you read in the papers are generated by AI. They're not just lists of stats, they're human paragraphs that are applying interpretation of the results. They look like they're written by a human. No, they're written by ML systems. Then when you look at Netflix or YouTube, which videos and programs are you being shown? The ones that an AI system thinks you want to see. So you've got AI systems writing the news, AI systems telling you which news to look at, and AI systems reading the news. The whole world of fake news is going to get a whole load worse in our lifetime. Trying to make people aware of that and to be very careful as to where you get your information from and how you can trust it is going to be an ever-increasing problem. And this leads to unemployment of how many jobs are going to be taken by AI systems. You can find out. Go to willrobotstakemyjob.com. If you type in there production line worker, the answer is you're doomed. Yes, robots will take your jobs, some jobs. It's estimated, PricewaterhouseCoopers predicts that 30% of jobs in the UK will be replaced by AI systems over the next 15 years. That's a lot of jobs. Out of those companies that have plans to implement AI systems, only a third of them have reskilling programs planned to reskill those people into other more technical jobs. We're talking about it's happening in one generation. And that's when you've got the next generation coming up, learning or trying to figure out what jobs they want to do. This is a critical decision path for them of how do they choose what career to go into that isn't going to get replaced. But obviously, just a number of, in the talks we heard earlier, the introduction 60-second talks, so many people involved in machine learning now that actually we need people to build these systems, to analyse the data, to use the output of these systems to actually manage our businesses and do things with them. And that's becoming a critical part. Breweryman, Paul, said earlier, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. Absolutely. First one was steam, then electricity, then computing, and we're now in the connected IoT data revolution. Everything you have, whether it's your TV, your fridge, your Fitbit watch, your phone, sensors on production lines, sensors on refrigeration units, lifts in hotels, are all connected and sending data out. The rate we're creating data as a human race is exponentially growing. We can't manage that data ourselves. We need AI systems to filter through that, to identify where we should be spending our time as people. So our job as data analysts and data analytics developers is to create systems that can take this wealth of data you've got, identify where you should be focusing your human mind to actually act on that and make a benefit to society, your business, etc. If you don't have in your business a plan to have some kind of more enhanced, advanced data analytics at some point over the next few years, you will get left behind by your competitors. That is an absolute certainty. So if you haven't got a plan already, you need to come talk to us or the universities that we heard earlier from that can offer free advice, just to understand how you may want to build this into your long-term roadmap of how you could use these systems to initially gain a competitive edge on your competitors, or at least worst case scenario, just to keep up with them. Great, well thank you very much for inviting me here today and thanks for listening.